How does costume show a character's development? Costume design is defined as the process to plan, create or stage all the costumes for a piece of media. This can involve styling ready-made pieces or creating a costume from scratch. There isn't usually a costume designer hired for animated movies, with this task being left to the character's designers. So then why are some of these costumes some of the most recognisable around the world? Part 1. Cinderella. Disney has one recognisable problem. Characters don't tend to develop over the course of a story. Cinderella starts her story as a poor, kind, patient and unconfrontational character. She finishes the story as a kind, patient, unconfrontational, happily married princess. So what can we infer from Cinderella, and why are her costumes some of the most iconic in the animation world? Cinderella's costumes focus on the rags to riches storyline, showing her determination to wait it out rather than change under pressure. Her story focuses on her relentless kindness and patience. In 1950, we are introduced to her in work clothes, practical and plain. She has a job to do. A baby blue undershirt with a brown apron over the top. Baby blue is used throughout Cinderella's story to represent her and her world around her. Blue is traditionally used as a sad colour, creating a feeling of loss and tragedy, but blue is also a colour of calm. Wearing blue as a base shows how Cinderella's calming personality is set in her and can't be changed. Cinderella finishes her story in a grandiose silver ball gown, standing out from the bright colours of the ball with an elegance of wealth she was actually born into. Cinderella's ball gown is silver, reflecting the colours of the night sky and blending in with the hues of the kingdom around her. She was designed for the kingdom. This scene completes the animated Cinderella's development. It shows how she has become completed. From only wearing small amounts of her blue, to trying to defer in an old dress of her mother's, to meeting the prince and falling in love. Her story has become full circle. So if the blue of the animation was to show her calming and her fitting in with the kingdom, it begs the question as to why the blue dress was kept when Disney reimagined the story in 2015. Though Disney now has a reputation for making subpar live-action adaptations, the 2015 animation gave life to the character of Cinderella. It gave her backstory as to why she was so kind and compassionate. The development of the character gives her life and a purpose. She has flaws which give her believability. Her life and her struggle becomes a part of her and her costumes. As stated previously, her animated workwear is plain and practical. In the live action, her dress has texture with a whimsy feel. She wears the same dress between her life with her father and after his death. She holds on to her past life and is showing how it's been taken over by her stepsisters, as well as her wish to go back to her old life. By holding onto her old dress, she holds on to her memories and her dignity. This is also a way of segregating her away from the rest of her stepfamily, who wear different outfits through the progression of Cinderella's life. As her stepfamily continue to mistreat her, her dress becomes worn and faded, leading her to run away and have a run-in with the prince. This interaction changes her story, from straight rags to riches to love. It shows her passion for the defense of what she cares about. It adds a layer to her and the prince's story, creating a connection between them and making their romance more relatable and aspirational. The next development for Cinderella is for her dress for the ball. In 1950, the dress is layered of pink and white. In the live action, her dress is a delicate replica of her work clothes. The pastel pink shows her femininity and her passion as she defends her choice to wear it. Her dress being destroyed shows a change in Cinderella. She stands up for herself, simply asking, "How could you?" A small change from the original, where she begs, but a powerful change to show her character developing from a subdued blue to a passionate pink. It is also in this pink dress where she loses her hope and her belief. She has tried for years in the damaged blue dress, holding on to the memories of her old, happy life, the memories of her mother were literally being torn from her body. The ball gown from the live action is probably one of the most recognisable dresses from the franchise. Designer Sandy Powell wanted the dress to fall like a waterfall with multiple shades of blue, purples and whites. Over 217 metres of fabric and over 10,000 Swarovski crystals were used to create this dramatic blue ball gown. Blue represents the original Ella, kind, compassionate and brave. She is back to believing in the magic her mother bestowed on her. The dramatic transformation shows how she has changed through her hard times and doubts. She stands up for herself and through it all remains truthful to her character. This live action is a key example of how animated design can be adapted into live action, and how a character can be taken through a journey to modernise and yet still remaining true to the original. Developing an iconic character to live action can be done. How come Cinderella is recognised as one of the only successful adaptations by Disney? Part 2. Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is one of Disney's most recognisable and iconic movies of the Disney Renaissance period. When Disney announced the live-action adaptation in 2017, fans were excited to see the result, especially after the fan success of Cinderella's adaptation previously. However, despite having Barbie designer Jacqueline Duran on board, Beauty and the Beast is now known as one of the biggest letdowns in the Disney live-action repertoire, with issues ranging from the actress Emma Watson to issues with auto-tune and, of course, the costumes. So, what was so wrong with the costumes in Beauty and the Beast? Belle is a very special character in Disney history, being Howard Ashman's last film to write the music for before he died of complications with HIV and AIDS. Howard wanted his final character to be special. So when he wrote the song Belle, it's a standout moment, showing her as a character, practical, and a dreamer. She has wants and needs that weren't really explored by Disney princesses up until that point. Her clothes reflect and respect her drive, again a blue dress with white accents to show a hidden sadness and purity within the character, with a drive to escape her provincial life. Her outfit differentiates herself from the rest of the town. Her brown hair separates herself from the other women pining over Gaston, as well as her overall colour palette, separating herself into the reputation of the strange, funny and peculiar girl. When this was translated into live action, Duran wanted to make her version of Belle stand out for her animated counterpart, but adding floral details for a nice feminine touch. Using the animation as a starting point, she chose to work with Emma Watson and create costumes for a heroine rather than a delicate princess. This in principle is understandable, as Watson was facing herself as a feminist and adamantly would not be wearing a corset within the film. Despite Duran wanting to look into a more historical setting, placing Beauty and the Beast in an 18th century with a fantasy twist. This fantasy twist and historical influence helped to ground the live-action Belle in her world, but it also creates a sense of rules and limitations when designing the rest of the costumes that the animation didn't have to compete with. The suspense of belief can be altered and shifted without worry of context and accuracy. These self-insured limitations create one of the biggest letdowns within the live action, the golden dress of the ballroom scene. This is commonly known as the final dress, though not the last dress within the film, is the pivotal moment of the movie, with all the build-up and development between herself and the Beast lead up to this one singular moment. So, let's compare the two. In the animation, the scene begins with Belle's entrance, an impactful large layered gold dress with ruched details, an off-the-shoulder neckline with matching gloves. The dress is an outlier from the practical outfits of the rest of the movie. It shows how she has become bolder, more relaxed in herself. She has even forced the Beast out of his shell, and by dancing together, it emphasizes their connection. This is Belle at her best. In this moment, she has created what she wanted. She has escaped her provincial life and found love in the process. Her traits of kindness, compassion, stubbornness, and independence has all accumulated in this one impactful moment. It's a payoff for the audience, making it all worth watching Belle's emotional journey as she connects with the Beast. Compare this to the live action, where Belle is in a multi-layered embroidered yellow dress with a corset-style bodice and short sleeves. It's fair to say that these dresses do not compare side by side. Impact is lost within the live action dress and the lead up to this moment. Then Belle comes out in a dress with no nuance of her character or her story. Her live action dress before had detail, personality, age, and a purpose. This particular dress feels like it had to be there, but it did not want to be. The dress is dull. Despite having a bright yellow colour, there is little to no texture or depth, meaning that all the intricate gold embroidery just fizzles out from the audience's vantage point. The dress being yellow is a cheap deviation from the original. Designer Jacqueline Duran has stated in interviews that the yellow dress was always going to be yellow. The issue being that the dress was originally gold. The ball gown in the animation was full of different shades of yellow and gold to create the illusion. It had enough depth to create the luxurious feeling of a dress from a palace hidden away. Duran's ball gown doesn't give enough depth to match the character. To compare it to its live-action counterpart, where designer Sandy Powell worked on creating a magical separation between her outfits, adding that magical emphasis to the character, a girl who never stopped dreaming. Watson's dress was made up of a singular shade. It looked flat on screen, even more than the 2D animation. It lacked the graceful, satisfying ending that the audience craved. Comparing Powell's Once Upon a Time period inspiration and Duran's active heroine modernization, it shows how important the element of Disney magic is in these costumes and characters. The obvious differences between even the two live-action dresses just show how the impact was lost on Watson and how the design of the final dress sullied the character. Watson plays Belle very well, but is ultimately overshadowed by the lackluster dress created for her by Duran. The dress is flat and drowns out the detail they did put into it, like the embroidery around the hem. The staging blends her in, rather than having her stand out amongst her peers. Even against the detail in CGI Mrs. Potts in the background, the attempt was subtly and sadly badly executed. Subtlety can help a character stand out. When surrounded by a sea of glamour and glitter, maturity and elegance can show how a character has grown in a more sophisticated way. Part 3. Enchanted. Enchanted is set in a fantastical land called Andalasia, a satire world of classic Disney. Giselle, our main character, opens in a straight, flowy, pink dress, immediately showing her as feminine and naive, exuding that raw princess energy, recognizing her free spirit persona. After meeting Prince Edward and agreeing to marry him, she sports a large, dramatic, poofy wedding dress with large 80s sleeves and a large ruffle down the center. The dress is a mirror of Princess Diana's dress, embodying her princess caricature. Costume designer Mona May wanted the dress to explode with details, which don't really get to shine until Giselle is forced into a human world, with a juxtaposition of the two worlds, meaning that the originally blinding white wedding dress has now become a detailed silver embroidered dress, with May even saying that the dress itself is a character in the film. The correlation between Giselle and her outfits is so interesting. Her outfits show her transition from fantastical naivety to the damp reality of New York City. Ironically, Giselle doesn't actually change too much within the movie. She remains highly positive and infectiously pure-hearted, even when faced with the realities of humanity. Giselle's character development is especially intriguing when you realise that her development is solely focused on her becoming grounded. She faces challenges and begins to realise that there may be more to life than marriage to a stranger. Her clothing starts to reflect that. Giselle begins her new life in New York City in a very blinding white dress, covered in sparkle and very out of place. Glitter is literally blinding her view of the world. She's a princess brought to life. As she spends more time in the real world, her clothing starts to slim, whilst keeping with her Andalasian belief system, wearing very relaxed florals and bright spring colours, standing out from the grunge of the city, while simultaneously beginning to blend into her environment. In her ballroom moment, Giselle is seen in her complete transformation, in a mauve, floor-length fishtail gown, notably more subtle and sleek. This drastic transformation shows her finally become grounded in reality, learning how to embrace her new life and all that it entails. She has embraced the modern trend of the early 2000s. This makes her stand out from the crowd, especially when considering that her specific environment in that scene is a kings and queens ball. She stands out from the sea of period costumes, being the only character in a modern silhouette, making her transformation a surprise to the audience and giving her the impact that her character deserves. It's a complete 180 for every character, as even Nancy, Giselle's counterpart, is seen in a large detailed gold dress, a possible direct contrast to Giselle's white and silver dress when she arrived in New York. The complete 180 in Giselle's outfit doesn't only demonstrate this sense of grounding, but the shift of the silhouette, colour palette and even her straightened hair allure to the fact that her character has matured. As she lives in New York, she learns more about who she is, learning about dates and how her initial relationship with Edward was built on a dream. She grows as a person, voices her opinions, says no and embraces her anger, while still keeping true to herself and embracing her intoxicating femininity. As she develops, her outfits slim down, her colours calm and reflect a fully rounded woman, exploring different silhouettes as she explores herself and showing the audience how she has learnt and developed. As she is being walked away from the ball, her and Edward could not be more opposite, clearly showing that they do not belong together. This ball scene completes Giselle's development, allowing herself to let go of the Andalasian dream and focus on herself and this new life she was pushed into, demonstrating how a costume can show development without the need for words when quickly analysing the other characters' developments. Giselle has gone from fantasy to real, poofy to sleek, fantastical to calm. Nancy is her opposite, choosing to live a life of fantasy and true love. Her character craved the romance of Giselle's world, growing as she learns to embrace the magic and live out her dream. Her character was eager to dress up for the New York ball, showing her desire for love and her connection with Prince Edward. Robert's character has learnt to embrace that sometimes things are not based in reality. As he falls in love with Giselle, he learns to embrace romance and see the good in people, dressing up at the ball in a carbon copy of the mannequin she created in Andalasia, a perfectly subtle way to demonstrate true love. Edward is a character who remains pretentious. In the other costumes throughout the film, he is true to himself and under the influence of Andalasia's inherent goodness. He does, however, learn to trust himself and learns not to be influenced by the whispering in his ear. This final transformation for Giselle demonstrates how the costumes can show a character developing slowly throughout their film. The audience can see how her costumes have been changing and how her personality is changing alongside it. Sometimes these changes are obvious, like with Giselle. Sometimes they are an impactful moment, like within Disney. Sometimes they have a dark purpose. They can reveal the true nature of a character without the audience even noticing. Part 4. Coraline. Some character designers show the development of the character as it happens. Others use their costumes to foreshadow the development or reveal their true intentions to the audience. A key example of this would be the character of the other mother, also known as the beldam. The beldam is first introduced in the film, making a mysterious doll into the main character Coraline, at the time only seen as some metallic, sharp hands, themes used throughout the character. When the beldam is introduced to Coraline for the first time, she is a better replication of her real mother. Comparing the two, the beldam looks more streamlined, shiny and brighter. Her turtleneck is more fitted with the look of being brand new. The beldam represents what Coraline wants, a new mother, one who is attentive not only towards her but towards herself. The beldam is put together, a personification of perfection. As the story develops, Coraline discovers more of the world and the beldam begins to change. It's very subtle at first, as if the mother is slowly being revealed alongside the world. It's an important fact when you realise that the beldam actually created the other world. The worlds are connected, being one character. Seeing the other world go from a child's wonderland to a more angular world is mimicked with the beldam. She changes from a comforting knitted sweater mimicking the original mother to a sharper black peplum jacket with red accents, hinting to her overarching themes of intimidation, power and death. The peplum creates shape within the beldam, making her appear more intimidating. She begins to dress more authoritatively. Peplum has been used as a statement throughout the ages, with a surge in popularity in the 1980s alongside the power suit. It gives a masculine structure and therefore a more powerful influence. As the beldam is beginning to lose her initial control over Coraline and revealing her true intent for superiority and Coraline's life force, her clothing reflects her character, as this is a pivotal point in the story, when Coraline is asked to sew buttons into her eyes and join the world. The beldam is using fashion to subtly convey her power over Coraline. The outfit also starts to reveal the insect influences of the beldam. Insects are a feature of both of Coraline's worlds, with a mantis being used to hold up her picture frame. So how do the insects in the film tell us more about the beldam? In Coraline's home world, they are used as accents to bring her comfort and memories of home. In the other world, they are used as lackeys for the beldam. Insects are normally frightening things to younger children. Bringing so many together could be used to create fear in Coraline. As the beldam continues her escalation, she demands respect from Coraline and increases her stature, growing her body as she tried to reprimand Coraline, becoming a spindly creature. She is barely recognisable from the initial beldam we meet in the beginning. She has become skeletal and going on the offensive against Coraline. These more angled proportions lead into the spider imagery used in the beldam's design. Deborah Cook, The designer on Coraline has explained that a metallic mesh was used within her outfit to create depth and texture within the puppet, giving her an even more rugged and otherworldly appearance. She stands out in a size, stature, and texture. As Coraline is forced back into the other world, the beldam becomes more enraged. Desperate for Coraline's attention and love to be able to feed, she has become more hunched over and frail as she loses Coraline. As the final battle continues, the beldam completes her transformation into her final form, a cracked and dishevelled being with strands of hair and her costume becoming long and layered, with Deborah Cook once saying that they use multiple layers of translucent fabric to show off the different layers of her decaying armature. Her hands have become fully metallic with nothing to hide, relating her back to her initial introduction of making Coraline's puppet. Her body has become decayed in her arms, shoulders and neck, protruding with spikes of bone. She is fully clawing at all the energy she has left to get what she needs from Coraline, withering away as the game continues. The beldam is a spider-like creature, sharp and damaged. She is transformed into having 4 legs with a broken face, tangled hair, and after the cat scratches out her eyes, she transforms her world into a spider's web. As Coraline shuts the door on the beldam, she begins to beg for her life. This downfall of the beldam was shown through the decay. She grasps one last time at Coraline's connection as a mother and daughter that might save her life. The beldam is a dramatic case of the downfall of a villain. Her decay from the wants and desires of a child to the insect holding on for dear life lives side by side with the plot of the main character and their collective world. It's about power. When the beldam is in control, she is put together and classy in the way she exerts herself, but as Coraline takes the power away from her, her stability creates her downfall, going from a sturdy replication of Coraline's mother to a shriveling spirit desperate for a meal. Costumes aid in creating depth in a character. They demonstrate the highs and lows of a character's story, how they grow from rags to riches, fantasy to reality, or from power to despair. Costume design gives hints to the plot and reveal a character's true intent. Costumes can be grand or simple, subconsciously impacting the audience and creating feeling for them. Whether it's the waterfall impact of Cinderella's ball gown or the insect-like growths of the beldam, development is one of the most important parts to a character, and choosing how to represent that in physical or animated form creates a sense of wonder for the audience, a memorability and relatability. Costume and character designers have such a pivotal job, creating these iconic designs that inspire and haunt. Creating a successful design includes the same range that a character's performance requires: thought and execution. When translating from animated to live action, considering texture, scale, fabrics and colours, the costume can speak volumes for the character or drive them into obscurity.